Thank you for your interest in the Retained Recruiter show powered by iIntro. Before the show starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. Our goal is to provide you with the most insightful, helpful and practical recruitment knowledge and know-how from the best in the recruitment industry. If you like this channel and enjoy watching our content, hit the subscribe button to get notified as soon as we upload a new episode. Thank you again, and as ever, we are rooting for your success. Now, time for the show. Hello and welcome to the Retained Recruiter show. My name is James.
My name is Joe. Thank you for, I thought we had a mystery guest then. I thought, wow, hang on, even we don't know who this could be.
I think that's why I hesitated. Ooh, anyway.
Who's the third person? Well, we don't have a third person today, actually. It's you and I, isn't it?
It is in this half-term week.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So for those who have joined us, thank you very much for joining us. And if you are watching us on repeat, then thank you for coming and finding us and listening back. We've got some great topics for you today. A pretty eye-catching headline there, James.
Yeah, I think probably evocative. But Joe, one of the phrases I love that you use, one of the phrases that you use in your training program on the Retained Recruiter Academy is emotion creates motion. And I love that little phrase that you use, because I know you use it to sort of, tell people that, if you want somebody to do something different, you've got to make it emotional so they actually do, want to do something different. So that title that we've got up there today, it is meant to sort of, provoke people to, hopefully watch a show, but also to give their opinions. And it's interesting because I was looking at a little piece on LinkedIn where we were promoting this show, and the fact is, what our views are on the contingent recruitment service. And we're not here to diss it, by the way. That's one of those things that will go. There is a place for everything in this world. And so, although our title is quite, thought-provoking, that side of things, but we do get people say, no, it's not that contingent recruitment is the way the service is delivered is dead. And there may be some truth in that. There was a comment that came on one of our posts, and it was quite a well thought out comment as well. So we're not here to say that you shouldn't do contingent recruitment. We just think there's a better way for you to do recruitment, don't we, Joe?
Yes, absolutely. I think that one of the things that we're going to look at today is just recruitment in general. On the whole, as an industry, the service that we are providing to our clients. We'll talk about return on investment for ourselves in a minute, but the service that we are providing to our clients, is it what we set out to do? So is it the type of service that we want to be providing? Is it bringing us in repeat business? Is it helping us? Is it helping our fill rates? Is it helping our ratios? Is it helping us to bring revenue into the business? Because I think most recruiters can sit hand on heart, it's that side, isn't it? Yeah. Hand on heart, and say, okay, not every single client that I bring in is going to be a 10 out of 10 client. However, am I accepting transaction instead of consultation? Am I sitting at my desk every single day and accepting job briefs from clients and then sending them some CVs and having very little or no actual, real, rich communication with the client? Am I helping to enable process, educate the client on better ways of recruitment? All that stuff. Am I doing all of that, or am I just sitting here putting up with transactional recruitment? Which, we're going to talk about that today. But there is an expiration date, I think, on transactional recruitment. So that's what we want to talk about today. And whether, as recruiters, we should be putting up with that. Should we be pushing back on clients and helping them to see that there's a better way of working, not just for them, but also for us, but also for the candidates as well, James? Because we say, again, quite an evocative phrase, but we say here, don't we, that traditional, 20th century recruitment is broken.
Absolutely. We talk about why, and it's one of the first questions that we put on the screen, why the contingency model is broken. I just want to give people some thoughts, for them to, to put some thoughts into their head, because I started, we've said this before, I started recruitment in the 80s, and Joe, that's the 1980s, before you make any joke about which and I talk about the fact that, when I started in recruitment, the process then, it's the same today. The only difference, and you can't call this revelation, is we've gone from pushing CVs or resumes through fax machines to pressing a button that says send. I mean, that isn't really an evolutionary process that we should be proud of. But the reality is there is so much more to the world of that. And the question I want people to think about here, so when we say why the contingent model is broken, I want you to think about the process. So how many vacancies do you have to work on legitimately to make a placement? And when you ask people, I know we ask these questions, Joe, when we get them on training calls, and we hear people say, 1 in 2, 1 in 3, and when you ask a room of that's what people provide. But what I'd say to you, do this, and this is an exercise I did in my recruitment business years ago, and I asked the question, and around the room, a bunch of people, 15, 20 people, I got the 1 in 2s, 1 in 3s, and one brave soul said 1 in 5. So there's the old 80-20 law. Now I actually said, well, listen, here's the stats in our CRM system. This is how many vacancies we had on last year, and this is how many invoices we raised, and it was just under 11%. So let's just call it 10% because it's nice and easy. So we had a success rate of 10%. To put that another way, Joe, that's a 90% failure rate. What business models can survive with an 80 to 90% failure rate? You just have to be a little bit crazy. But here we are as recruiters, and we just carry on the hamster wheel, going round and round, and saying it's okay for me to fail 80% because the 20% I win is worth a lot of money. There's a lot of effort that goes expended out there. So that's one of those things why we say that why the model is broken. It's got an 80% failure rate if you just accept 1 in 5. And I say, I know there's going to be people that say, mine's a lot more stuff like that, but it's not.
Even if it's 1 in 2, which is actually really good, even if it was 1 in 2, 50% of the work you do is not making you any money. So if you were doing a job where you were being paid a basic salary, would you work full-time hours for half the amount of pay? Probably not. If you were going to the gym and you were doing an hour's worth of a plan, but they said you're only going to get 50% of the results, would you stay there for the hour? Probably not. So again, and we're going to get on a bit later on into, okay, well, what do I do about this? You could be a recruiter sat at your desk listening to this. You could be a business owner. It's super sobering. I mean, one of the things we do with clients, when we go out to clients, is we have something called a bad hire calculator. So we put loads of figures in, and it enables them to see how much money they are losing by hiring the wrong people. And that's part of the iIntro platform. And clients, they don't like filling that in, do they? They don't like filling it in because it's very, very sobering. It's like weighing yourself after Christmas. You're like, do you know what? I'm quite happy, just not know. Ignorance is bliss. That's what they say. But this is all about, the death of contingent recruitment, the fact that it does have an expiration date. In the market we're in, if fees are coming down, margins and fees are being squeezed, which we know that they are, it's either a race to the bottom. You either lower your fees or we need to up our game. And so we're saying, look, we're in that camp over there, let's up our game. Let's increase our service level offering so that we don't have to lower our fees. So we are protecting our fees, but equally getting more fee. This isn't just about selling retainers. What we do is so much more than just let's teach you how to sell a retainer. This is about being able to win and close really, really high quality business, exclusive, moving up into retained for a good fee, for a high fee, which on paper, James, sounds really straightforward. We know how much more complex it is, but if emotion does produce motion, James, if people just sat down and looked at, okay, how many vacancies have we brought in? Take out the ones that you knew were probably tire kickers or, pink unicorns. Take those out. Write down a list of the number of jobs you actually worked. So we actually sourced candidates We put ads on, we did some headhunting, we did some LinkedIn, whatever. We actually sourced candidates for these vacancies. Write all those down, and then write down how many of them you actually filled. And whatever that is, that's your fill rate. And whatever percentage you're not filling, that's again, evocative, but we'll say that's your failure rate. So even if it's 30%, even if it's 40, if it's 50 or 60, or even 70%, how much longer can you carry on putting up with that?
Yeah. And a lot of our audience, Joe, who are here today, they're not the big high volume agencies. They're more of the people listening in are more likely to be running their own businesses, relatively modest in size. And so, we're not talking about when people say, "Oh, you're saying contingent recruitment's dead." I'm saying, no. As you go further up the food chain, then it's going to become more and more difficult to do that. And the reality is, when you've got a model that's fundamentally flawed, as this one is, then eventually it's going to get replaced by something. And so if it's just a transactional, as we're seeing at this moment in time, AI can replace. You can find candidates, you can search quicker and faster, everything else. And one of the questions, just to sort of elaborate on that Keith Fox, nice to see you today, Keith, has asked, do employers really benefit from half a dozen recruitment agencies racing each other to fill a position? It's a competition a contest really, where the reward, they reward speed over accuracy, because it's about how can you get things there, and that's not good for the employer. It's not good for the client, and it's also, as Keith points out, it's a question that you should be asking: how many other agencies are working on this particular role? Because if you're third or fourth in the queue, are you really going to find anybody new? And I know you say, listen, I've got an ability to wheedle out candidates that nobody else can find, and you may very well be good at that, but you're still in a race. And that's not the thing. And again, it has an impact on candidates as well, doesn't it? We'll talk about, because they'll be pushed and cajoled into roles that aren't the right fit for them, and then they leave after 6 to 9 months, and the cycle goes on again, and it's not good for us.
No, exactly. I think the candidate side, there's a whole other show just on candidate experience. The experience that you're giving to your candidates, is it good enough? There is a huge percentage of people now who don't use a recruiter to find their next job. Now, again, we can blame technology. So, direct sourcing methods through businesses via websites. We can, jobs and candidates are now closer together. It's easier to find jobs now than it used to be. Friends and family referrals, LinkedIn, all of these things, internal recruitment, of course, all of these things could be seen as, reducing the number of people that use agencies anyway. But there is a percentage of people who choose to not use a recruiter. And you have to think, why is that? Why would they not choose to use the professionals within their industry? And you can only really come down to the fact that either they don't trust them because they've had a bad experience with them, or maybe they think they could do it better than the professionals, So fine, if you've got, people who like to be in control, excellent. But for everything else, why would they want to try and do it themselves? I mean, for a candidate, it's free as well, So I think the candidate side is a slightly different matter. Coming back to what you said about the client side of it, from a very philosophical point of view, I look at the service that's being provided to businesses by giving them this sort of transactional recruitment experience, and wonder is that the reason why we have these PSLs? Huge, big, the top 20% of businesses in the UK. Let's talk about UK for a second. They are big enough to need an internal infrastructure to deal with their recruitment. And yes, they probably still need to use agencies. And yes, they probably need to use multiple agencies just because of the sheer size of their organization. Bless you.
Thank you.
But if you're working, if the business is recruiting and it's not a massive business, it lives in SME land, there's a hiring manager, maybe HR, there might even be an internal recruiter, few vacancies. Why do they need a PSL? Why do they need a list of 10 agencies all working on the same vacancies? That to me suggests that the agency that they had wasn't providing for them. So they added more, and then they added more, and then they added more. And as recruiters, again, I think we need to look at that and think, okay, what is it that we're doing or not doing, as the case may be, that isn't allowing that client to feel super confident in our ability to do a really, really good job. And this isn't just fill vacancies and send CVs. It's bigger than that. It's working with them to enable their end goal. You know, what do these people in your business do for your business? So I think, you know, I'm happy to argue with anybody on this, but I don't think as an industry we are doing enough to keep our clients, to keep the ones that we've got, and to convince others to use us, because what value are we adding that, you're right, either they can't do themselves, or technology is going to replace us at some point. If it's literally a keyword search on a CV, I don't know, how long have we got?
Yeah. I think it's that view, and it's the perception of a recruiter, really. And again, one of the questions we ask our clients to do, and anybody we're talking to, really, people who are discussing, say, you know, what do you think your client thinks of you? What do you think they do? Or, you know, and what they think you do is just go to a database, pull out 4 CVs, and for that you want 15%, and they'll balk at 15% nowadays because they're thinking, well, it's not that expensive just to go and dip your fingers in there. And the reality is, if you're not explaining your service and the, you know, identifying with the client where you add value, and I know that's a cliche, it's very easy to sort of throw out there, but if you're not showing that, then they can't determine whether you're worth talking to. And that's why the switch is there. So, yeah, I think at the big PSL level, Joe, that you spoke about there, I think, yes, transactional contingent recruitment will continue. We're not on about that. Yeah, we're not here to sort of, you know, have that specific argument, because that's covered in a different way. And a PSL, some of those larger RPOs, they're retained. By the way, that's a contract that they've got, so that it's almost guaranteed for those people. But one thing I want to point out to people is, when you have a demise of a business model, you know, the early bird catches the worm. You know, you've got to adapt and change, and that's what we're talking about. We help people transition to a consultative service. And when we wrote, you know, the title for today's topic is something that came out from before, when we actually put out a book called The Death of Contingency, to much derision, I might add. But I'd urge people to go and have a look at that, because we wrote it 8 or 9 years ago. And so if you get to our website and click on the iLibrary, you can go in there and you can download the book. And there's lots of other really great books. These are all free materials for people to have. But go down towards the bottom and you'll find The Death of Contingency. Download it and give it a read, because in there are 6 steps that you can take to make sure you're ahead of the curve, or looking at thinking, how can I change what I do? So again, if you don't believe us, just go and have a read of the book and see whether, does any of that resonate with you? And think about what can you do to refresh your business model so that you remain relevant in the marketplace. Because at the moment, you're possibly not. Forgive me for saying that. I mean, I'm not talking to anyone specifically, I'm talking generically. But there's a lot to be said there.
Well, absolutely. I think there's some key things. So we could talk about that now, really. We could talk about, you know, what can we do as businesses to start thinking about how do I increase the return on investment from my team? How can I make sure that they're not working for free, essentially? And I think and again, this is very fluid. I think people think you've either got to be retained or contingent, you know, and that there's not this whole like myriad of service level offerings in between that you could have. So I think you need to decide, where do we want to get our business to? So if you're currently working, let's think of sort of this end of the scale here. So we're talking transactional, a one of many agency working in a relatively arm's length way, if not an automated way, with your clients. So that's at that end of the spectrum. You've then got to think, okay, well, what would better look like for us? You know, is it an increase in fee? Is it exclusivity on vacancies? Is it a split payment model? Is it that you ask for a percentage of that at the beginning, so on agreement of the project with the client? Is it that you want all of that? Is it that you want all of that for all the vacancies that they've got? So you've got lots of things to think about as a business. And we have clients that work with us, don't we, James, who they have clients that do all of those different things. They have all of those different service models, because not every client is going to want this. Not every client is going to be ready for it, because remember, we've conditioned businesses for years to maybe think that the type of recruitment they're getting, which is that kind of 10% arm's length type of recruitment, is the only way. So we've kind of normalized it. So some clients won't want it. Some clients might not be able to get their heads around it. But then there will be some clients who are totally up for this, because you're helping them to solve problems that they haven't been able to solve previously. So
Yes.
I think you as a business need to identify, okay, what do we want to ask our clients for? And then, James, the most important bit that I think we then struggle with is, what are we going to give them or tell them that we do in return?
Yeah. Before we come to that, because I want to answer that, but I just want to give people a little bit of stuff that they can think about. How can they make that? How can they explain to an employer the difference between a consultative model and a transactional model? And so I'm going to try and explain it in a few words, which is not true. It'll be a lot of words. But so the thing that I will send to an employer when if you're dealing with me on a transactional basis, it feels great to you, doesn't it? Because you're not paying me anything, and I'm going to go off and work really hard to find you some candidates. And when I send you a great candidate, how do you feel? And they normally say, well, I feel good because if they're a good candidate, they're a good match, I'm going to interview them. Say, great, okay, but unfortunately, you don't understand the dynamics of the recruitment industry, specifically the sector I work in, which I'm not going to, you wouldn't explain to your clients. It's called contingent recruitment. But that means I actually have a win rate of 1 in 5. So I have to spread my risk. You have no loyalty to me, so I have no loyalty to you. My job as a transactional recruiter is to place candidates. I don't care who they're with, whether I place them with your company or someone else's. So when I send you a great candidate, I'm normally looking at the market thinking, who else might employ this great individual? And I will push them out there. And then it's the fastest client who can move quickly enough to win that particular work. And I don't care whether you take them or not. So that's the way the model works. You have no relationship with me or no loyalty to me. I have none to you either, by the way. So I'm going to move candidates around that way. Whereas if you engage me on a consultative basis, my role shifts. It doesn't shift from, it shifts from me placing candidates to filling your vacancy. Specifically, I work for you. I'm going to keep working until I find this person. Yeah, and it's a subtle difference, but if you point that out to clients, they can start to see why. They still may not agree to retain you, but you may get it on an exclusive basis, or you might get what we call a container, which is a small percentage of the fee up front. Yeah, but that's better than working on a purely contingent basis, and it's often a stepping stone for people to come into. And it's just starting that realization that I've got a model which is sapping my energy. It's taking a lot out of me. I work really hard, and I find I only get results on 1 day of the week. I prefer to get results every day of the week if I can, if I may. So you sort of got to take on from that. So I think it's just trying to help clients, people understand that you do that. And that point there is not every role is right to be retained, because as you said, Joe, sometimes clients will ask you for unicorns. Just because you've taken a retainer doesn't make it any easier to fill. So don't be crazy and take on roles. We're not saying, every role has to be retained, but we do know, and we do have many clients who made that transition from being a transactional contingent recruiter to being 100% consultative retained. It's not for everybody. We get that sometimes, and we've got a lot of clients who sit in the middle there because they might be bringing in newer people into the industry, and it's a great place. Contingent is a great place to cut your teeth from that side of things. But it is possible if you want to do it. And I say, just go back and there's a great story in this Death of Contingency book which talks about how you can do that as well.
Yeah.
Back to your question.
Absolutely. So talking about, what you make a really good point there as well. So we'll bring that in. So identifying what would good look like for you as a business. So is that, same fee or higher fee, exclusive, retained, somewhere on a sliding spectrum in between those, deciding what your service level, what your model is going to look like. Then the next step to that is, okay, we need to identify what our service level offering is. So if this is what we're asking for, what are we giving them in return? A lot of it's what you're already doing. But as you said before, James, they don't know, and a lot of businesses will assume the least. We know half the time we are fading away. We are killing ourselves trying to find really good candidates for them. And then we find one and we're like, oh my goodness, this person is amazing. And then you put them in front of the client and they go, yeah, I want to see some more. Really? Do you? But that's because they have a very different understanding or expectation of what's going to happen to you, because they don't know what you've been off doing. So yes, We need to show them the machine. We need to, you know, show them behind. We like to think recruitment's all smoke and mirrors. You know, nothing up my sleeves. Ta-da, an amazing candidate. But actually, if they don't know what you're doing to find it, either A, they'll just assume you've done very little and you found it down the back of a radiator, or they'll think, oh, they're making this look really easy. Either A, it's not worth the fee that they're charging, or B, do you know what? We might try and do this ourselves. And I remember a very, very big cafe chain, coffee chain that I'd been working with for 3 years, doing all their recruitment, done an excellent job. At the end of 3 years, they said, we're going to try and bring it in-house and do it ourselves. We're like, okay, is there any particular reason why? If you've been, you know, provided with a bad service? They went, no, but you've just made it look almost so easy that we could do it ourselves. Okay, off you pop then. Off you pop and you have a go. Literally within 12 months, they were back. And obviously our fees had gone up by a third in that time. So yeah, please don't not show them what you do. It's very important that they can see, show them you're working out, you know, because they need to be able to see that. So we can talk about that in a minute. But that point you made then about the unicorns, you know, that's really important, because you need to decide as a business or as a recruiter if you want to work with that client, if you want to work on that vacancy. And then if you decide you want to work with them and you want to work on that vacancy, your job then is to maximize your chances of getting paid for it. So make a decision, qualify the client, either in or out of working with them, then decide what you want, what is the model you want for this vacancy, explain that to them, and then tell them what you're going to do for them in return. And the benefit of what you're going to do for them has to far outweigh the slight increase in fee or the shift to a slightly different way of working. So that's the key, isn't it, James? It's that benefit. What benefit do you offer to an organization?
And then, Joe, I recall you saying, and then what you create is you create your PCL, your preferred client list, rather than being a preferred supplier list, where you're sort of kowtowing to the client in that particular way. And it is about building that authority position up where they see you as the trusted advisor. And again, I know people heard these phrases before, but you can only do that if you've demonstrated. And when we talk about recruitment being an intangible service, how do we demonstrate the value that we offer? And that's where you can nowadays. You can, what you said there is so important. Show them what you do. Show your workings. This is like back doing an exam at school, isn't it? How do you make that long division number, look so easy? Well, here's all my workings out. And you put it through. It's the same, because then people appreciate the effort, and that's what they'll pay you for, and that's why they'll pay higher fees. And the reality is
that's why they'll work with you rather than work with other agencies, because you've just proven that you clearly do more than them. So why bother working with all of them? Just work with me exclusively.
And the other thing is, obviously, when you're working on a fully retained basis, there are some dynamics there that you need to be aware of. You can't work on as many vacancies because it takes up time. But you're being paid for it, so you can do it. And people ask us, how many can I do in a year? Well, if you're a full 360 recruiter, and most people listening today will be in that model, then the reality is you're probably going to do at best 15, somewhere between 10 and 15, maybe 15 to 20. So then you've got to work out, well, if my average fee is X, well, 10X of that is rubbish, is what you're probably thinking. I'd be better getting to work on 80 roles and filling 20 of them. But so if that's 20X, that feels more. But what people don't realize is you get the multiplier effect. When you can show and demonstrate to the client where you add value, what you're going to deliver for them, how you're going to benefit them, how you're going to do it instead of the client, how you can do it more better than the client, your selection process, and how you can do it more cost effectively, because going back to your model with the coffee brand, they found out it's not cheap to do it themselves. Then they'll appreciate it. They will actually pay you a higher fee. And so if you're working on 15% of 50 grand, you're getting a 7.5K fee. But just by going up the food chain a little bit, let's say to 60 grand, which is not within the reach, it's not about executive search, and charging 25%, your average fee is 15,000. And that's double what you just did. And that's what we've seen over and over again. And that's why we suggest to people, if you want to find out how we do it, how we can help you, get in touch with us. Because as the old saying goes, if you try and go from point A to point B, speak to the person who's already at point B to find the directions. Have a roadmap to help you. That's what we do. We're the people at point B. We can help you get there if it's a journey that you wish to go on. Otherwise, you're just going to stick your head in the sand and think, oh, these guys, they're speaking rubbish. It won't happen to my market. It will. You will get replaced. AI has already replaced us in lots of ways, which different story that we'll talk about. Obviously, it's about how you use AI to complement your services. We're big fans of that. But if it's just about identifying CVs faster, AI is going to beat you. It already is, by the way. So from that side of things.
Yes, absolutely. Sobering thoughts, but actually kind of super exciting as well. So we work with recruitment businesses all the time who they come to us kind of out of frustration, don't they? I remember someone said, because I said, so why have you come over to our intro? And she just said, because there's got to be a better way. She was so frustrated at clients and candidates letting her down all the time, and just having not feeling as if she was in control of her own business, not being able to scale it, not really being able to predict or forecast properly either. So I think there's a lot that people could hopefully take from this. I think this is something. I mean, this is what we do for a living, so we're going to do a load more shows on this type of stuff, and we offer initial consultations if anyone wants to have a chat about, non-judgmental as well. If anyone wants to have a chat about, look, this is where my business is now. What could I be doing to make my business better, to improve my business? We are more than happy to have that chat with organizations.
I mean, we're educators, Joe, and it's trying to help people. I think one of the saddest things I hear sometimes, and you'll have heard this one as well, is when people say, "I'm just falling out of love with recruitment." I came into it, I loved it, but it's just got harder and harder. And clients don't respect you because they see you as a commodity that they could just trample all over. And we're looking to take people out. The future of recruitment. This for us, 2025 is the year of the retainer. It's our mission to go out there and bang the drum and let employers know, as well as recruiters, there's a better way for them. It'll be better for the candidates, better for the employers, better for the recruiters. And we're looking to fulfill that role. And that transition, moving from where you're at to somewhere different, it's achievable. Doesn't matter what size your business is. Doesn't matter what model, what market you're in, or sector. We can help all types of people. If you've never sold a retainer before, if you've tried to sell a retainer and failed, we can help you. That's what we do. We've been doing it for years. You've trained thousands of people in sort of doing this. So listen, we're looking for thousands more in some respects, but it takes a few years to get through that. So it's not going to be a mad rush on this one. But we'd love to sort of help people in some future way, wouldn't we?
Yes, 100%. Retainers, relationships, return on investment.
Good. Joe, as you mentioned, I think we're just coming to the end of our show today. There's lots more we can talk about. I just wanted to, for anybody listening, but we will trail this. We're going to have a show in a couple of weeks with a special guest. We're going to be talking a little bit about the world of psychometrics and behavioural assessment. We've got a very special guest coming on that, a guy called Ian Chalmers, who's well respected in the industry. He's actually going to share his thoughts and highlights. So please do look out for that one and come and join us on that show on the 6th of March. Yes,
100%. It's a really good show. Psychometrics is a huge ingredient in the recipe that is iIntro. We have a 96% retention rate. We offer a 12-month free replacement policy, up to 12-month free replacement. That's evocative, but you can't do that without having excellent relationships, excellent advocacy, excellent commitment, excellent control, excellent understanding of the scientific and objective part of assessing
control. Control there, controlling the process. But again, that's where we get pushback sometimes. We say, well, I don't control what the client does. Yes, no, you don't if you're transactional, but if you're consultative, you do.
Yeah.
So listen, I think we could go on forever, Joe, couldn't we? And obviously people have probably got other things to get on do with. So look out for our other shows. It's been great to be with you today. Thank you so much for listening, even if it's on listen back service or what you call it, Joe, repeat or something.
Repeat. That's not from the 80s like James.
Ooh. So until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Joe.
Yo.